This is an inspiring yet a tragic story about Sophie Scholl, born May 9, 1921, in Furstenberg, Germany. This young German student was a beacon of courage in a time when darkness loomed over the nation, cast by the menacing figure of Adolf Hitler and his Nazi regime. At the tender age of 21, Sophie faced her untimely demise, leaving behind a legacy of unwavering bravery and a lasting inspiration for generations to come. With her unyielding spirit and a heart brimming with justice, she stood tall, defying the tyrant himself. In the hallowed halls of the University of Munich, Sophie pursued knowledge with a passion matched by few. Yet, as she delved into the depths of academia, she discovered a truth that shook her to the core. The tendrils of Nazi propaganda slithered through the air, poisoning the minds of her fellow countrymen. But Sophie, with her sharp intellect and keen perception, saw through the veil of deceit. With her brother Hans by her side and a group of like-minded friends, in June of 1942, Sophie became part of White Rose resistance movement. Together, they would pen their dissenting thoughts on leaflets, determined to awaken the dormant conscience of their fellow Germans. In secret chambers and hidden corners, they poured their souls onto the pages, words blazing with the fire of truth. Under the cover of night, Sophie and Hans ventured into the heart of the city, their footsteps carrying them where others feared to tread. They scattered their leaflets like seeds of rebellion, sowing doubt in the minds of their countrymen. The words on those pages were a clarion call, urging the people to rise against the oppressive regime, to question the lies and propaganda that held them captive. But the hands of fate are fickle, and the tendrils of darkness can tighten their grip when least expected. On February 18, 1943, while distributing leaflets at their university, Sophie and Hans found themselves ensnared in the clutches of the Gestapo, Hitler's ruthless secret police. Interrogations followed, but Sophie remained resolute, her spirit unbroken. In a courtroom, Sophie stood before her accusers. The trial was a masquerade, a farce designed to break her spirit. But Sophie, with her unwavering determination, delivered impassioned speeches, her words ringing with truth and righteousness. How could they expect silence when evil thrived? How could they turn a blind eye to the suffering inflicted upon the innocent? Sophie believed it was their duty as humans to challenge injustice, to defy those who trampled upon their freedoms. Alas, the forces of darkness prevailed. Sophie and Hans, along with their comrade Christoph Probst, were condemned to death. On February 22, 1943, the guillotine awaited them, its cold embrace beckoning. But even in those final moments, Sophie's courage did not waver, for she knew that her sacrifice would forever etch her name in the annals of bravery and resistance. In her last breaths, Sophie uttered these words:
"How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? Such a fine sunny day and I have to go. But what does my death matter if through us, thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action?"
Today we remember Sophie Scholl, the iconic young student who defied Hitler and his Nazi regime. Her spirit lives on, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are those who will rise, who will challenge oppression, and who will fight for what is right. May her story inspire us all to be brave and to stand up against injustice no matter the cost.
And that is the most important topic on earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek?
Our common goal
Not a
should
Pax
be very
Americana,
clear. We need to
enforced on the
turbocharge our
world
defense industrial
by American
capacity
weapons of war.
in the next 5 years.
Not the peace
And
of
at
the
the heart of
grave,
this must
or the
be
security
one
of the
simple
slave.
principle. Europe
I am
must
talking
spend
about
more,
genuine peace,
Europe must spend better,
the kind of peace that
and Europe
makes life
must
on
spend
earth
European.
worth living,
and this will help
the
us
kind
feel
that
the
enables men
urgent
and nations to
need
grow
to rebuild,
and to hope,
replenish, and modernize
and build a better life
member
for their
states'
children.
armed forces.
Not
Europe
merely
should
peace for
strive to
American,
develop and manufacture the
but peace
next
for all men and
generation
women.
of battle-winning
Not merely peace in our time,
capabilities and my friends,
peace in all time.
the EPP,
I speak of peace because of the new face
that
of
has
war.
championed a Europe
Total war
that
makes
can
no
defend
sense
itself.
in an
And we
age
will
where
be the
great
party
powers
that
can
delivers on a
maintain
defense
large
union. And this topic needs
and relatively
undivided
invulnerable
attention.
nuclear
And therefore,
forces
we need a
and
designated
refuse to surrender
defense commissioner for the
without
next
resort to those
mandate
forces.
to serve our
It
Europe.
makes no sense in
Let's
an
fight
age
for Europe.
where a single
Long
nuclear
live
weapon
Europe. Thank you.
contains almost 10 times the explosive force delivered by all the Allied air forces in the Second World War. It makes no sense in an age when the deadly poisons produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of the globe and to generations yet unborn. Today, the expenditure of billions of dollars every year on weapons acquired for the purpose of making sure we never need them is essential to the keeping of peace. But surely the acquisition of such idle stockpiles, which can only destroy and never create, is not the only, much less the most efficient, means of assuring peace. I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task. Some say that it is useless to speak of peace, or world law, or world disarmament, and that it will be useless until the leaders of the Soviet Union adopt a more enlightened attitude. I hope they do. I believe we can help them do it. First, examine our attitude towards peace itself. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control.
It is a war on
We
our
need not
future.
accept that view.
It is
Our
about
problems are
autocracy
man-made,
against
therefore they
democracy.
can be solved by man,
And I stand here with the
and man
conviction
can be as big
that
as he
with
wants.
the necessary courage
No problem of
and
human
with the
destiny
necessary solidarity,
is beyond human
Putin
beings.
will fail, and
Man's
Ukraine
reason and
Europe
spirit
will prevail.
Have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. And second, let us re-examine our attitude towards
We
the
need to
Soviet Union.
turbocharge our defense industrial
It is discouraging to
capacity
think that their
in the next
leaders
5 years.
may actually
And at the heart
believe
of this
what their
must
propagandists
be one
write.
simple principle.
It is discouraging to
Europe must
read a
spend
recent
more,
authoritative
Europe must
Soviet
spend
text
better,
on military
and
strategy
Europe must spend European.
and find on
And
page
this
after
will help
page
us fill the
wholly
urgent
baseless,
need to
and
rebuild,
incredible
replenish,
claims,
and modernize
such as the
member states'
allegation that
armed
American
forces.
imperialist
Europe
circles
should strive to
are
develop
preparing to
and
unleash
refresh
different
the
types of
next
war,
generation.
that there is a very real
Winning
threat of a
operational
preventative war
capabilities.
being
And my
unleashed by
friends,
American imperialists
the
against the
EPP
Soviet Union,
is the party
and that the political aims, and I
that has
quote,
championed
of the American
a Europe
imperialists
that can defend itself.
are to enslave economically and
And we will be the
politically
party that
the
delivers
European
on
and
a
other
defense
capitalist
union.
countries
And this topic
and to
needs
achieve world
undivided
domination
attention. And
by
therefore,
means
we
of
need a
aggressive war,
designated
unquote.
defense commissioner
Yet it is
for
sad
the
to read
next
these
mandate
Soviet statements
to serve our
to
Europe.
realize the extent of the
Let's
gulf
fight
between
for
us.
Europe.
But it
Long
is
live
also a
Europe.
warning.
Thank you.
A warning to the American people not to fall into the same trap as the Soviets, not to see only a
Putin
distorted
is
and desperate view of the other side,
He
not
is
to see conflict
responsible
as
for the
inevitable,
death of Alexei
accommodation
Navalny.
as impossible,
And
and
it was
communication
breathtaking
as nothing more
to see
than
the
an exchange of
courage
threats.
those who attended
No
the
government or
rallies.
social system is so
Europe
evil
will stand by Ukraine
that its
for
people
as
must be
long
considered
as it takes.
as lacking in
With
virtue.
more financial support,
As Americans, we find
military
communism
support,
profoundly repugnant
Russia has
as a
destroyed
negation of
houses,
personal freedom
hospitals, and
and dignity.
kindergartens.
But we
they
can
could
still
not
hail the Russian
destroy
people
the dream.
for their many
The
achievements
dream
in
of a
science,
free and
space,
prosperous Ukraine
in economic and
that
industrial
takes its
growth,
place
in
at
culture,
the heart of the
in active
European
courage.
Union.
Among the many traits the peoples of our two countries have in common, none is stronger than our mutual abhorrence of war. Almost unique among the major world powers, we have never been at war with each other. And no nation in the history of battle ever suffered more than the Soviet Union in the Second World War. At least 20 million lost their lives. Countless millions of homes and families were burned or sacked. A third of the nation's territory, including 2/3 of its industrial base, was turned into a wasteland. A loss equivalent to the destruction of this country east of Chicago. Today, should total war ever break out again, no matter how, our two countries will be the primary target. It is an ironic but accurate fact that the two strongest powers are the two in the most danger of devastation. All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed in the first 24 hours. Massive sums of money to weapons that could be better devoted to combat ignorance, poverty, and disease. America's weapons are non-provocative, carefully controlled, designed to deter, and capable of selective use. Our military forces are committed to peace and disciplined in self-restraint. Our diplomats are instructed to avoid unnecessary irritants and purely rhetorical hostility, for we can seek a relaxation of tensions without relaxing our guard. And for our part, we do not need to use threats to prove we are resolute. We do not need to jam foreign broadcasts out of fear our faith will be eroded. We are unwilling to impose our system on any unwilling people, but we are willing and able to engage in peaceful competition with any people on earth. The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. We do not want a war. We do not now expect a war. This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression. We shall be prepared if others wish it. We shall be alert to try to stop it. But we shall also do our part to build a world of peace where the weak are safe and the strong are just. We are not helpless before that task, but hopeless of its success. Confident and unafraid, we must labor on, not towards a strategy of annihilation, but towards a strategy of peace.
The deaths of the world's greatest figures, Sophie Scholl and John F. Kennedy, have undoubtedly been humanity's greatest losses, and fools like Lyndon B. Johnson, George W. Bush, Ursula von der Leyen and the White King of the Coalition and little bit Waco Sawley the Two-Face Niinisto have been wedged into the leadership of the state who have doctorates on deliberate misinterpretations of statistics and ethnic cleansing. Ursula von der Leyen, who is clearly a representative and supporter of the pure white race, thanks to her pure white surname, which Nazi Hitler could even pay to get it. Ursula von der Leyen, who is clearly Germany's new Minister of Propaganda and a happier version of Joseph Goebbels, who is driving the people of the earth to war with each other, and like all the previous idiots of her kind on this planet, Ursula von der Leyen will also drink tea when she watch these massacres on TV, how the people of this planet fight wars started by she and her allies. Ursula von der Leyen and Sawley the Two-Face Niinisto, who both like the smell of blood and gunpowder in the morning, and how the money flows aimed in the name of this Ukraine war goes to their own bank accounts on tax havens companies, is for sure worth starting these wars where you don't have to be on the war fronts to fight and die. Ursula von der Leyen, who is the new arrival of Nazi propaganda, which she cleverly does with feminism, self-pity and self-accusations, which would seem to sink the people in your own propaganda media. The feminism of the 21st century, whose pity points are used by women to drive a medieval witch hunt into this planet once again, which is done under the guise of medically non-existent and imaginary diseases of medical psychiatry. National cleansing of 21st century that is carried out with the help of these imaginary diseases by medicating all problem citizens unprofitable to the state with the drugs used in cancer treatment, which are fed into autumn depression, is for sure something that Nazi Germany did not have time enough to carry out in all their hurry.